My name's David Richards. I married my wife, Nancy, 8 years ago. We tied the knot not long after finishing college and landing solid jobs. Right away, we began saving up for the house we always talked about owning together. From the very beginning, I knew I wanted to be a father. Nancy, on the other hand, made it clear kids were not part of her plan. That difference caused more tension over time than I like to admit. We met during a bird-watching hike in college. Both of us were hooked on the outdoors and loved tracking different species through the woods. Our relationship started strong, simple, exciting, and down to earth. Even our first private moment happened out there under the trees, and that patch of forest sort of became our place. Nancy never dressed flashy, but with her shoulder-length dark hair and sun-kissed skin, she always looked beautiful to me. Still, as the years rolled on, things shifted. Our physical connection started fading. I chalked it up to normal aging in a relationship. But deep down, I missed her warmth. Nancy kept herself fit, visited the spa regularly, and put effort into looking good. I started wondering if her refusal to have kids was more about keeping her figure than anything else. My job got intense, and I was working long hours. Most evenings, I'd come home, drop onto the couch, and pass out. Meanwhile, Nancy would get home early, change clothes, grab her binoculars, and head out to the trails, logging every bird she saw. She'd be out until sundown. I figured maybe she just needed time to herself, but the distance between us kept growing. I tried to believe she was still happy. I wanted to believe that. One day, I brought up taking a trip together. "Nancy, what do you think about a vacation? Just the two of us. Maybe a short one," she said. "We've both got a lot going on." I was thinking a full week or two. Something quiet. Somewhere we could reconnect. "David, I'm not sure I can be away from work that long. Let's just stick with working on the house. That's more important." I tried to push a little more, but she shut it down. I kept wondering, was I enough for her anymore? That night, I reached out to her emotionally and physically. She said she had a headache and turned away. Her bird journal showed almost daily hikes, but her bird counts were oddly low. Something didn't sit right with me. I have a Honda Rebel 250 motorcycle. Quiet, quick, and perfect for going unnoticed. One afternoon, I told my assistant, Laura, that I'd be in the records room all day and not to expect me until evening. I slipped out the back exit and parked my bike several blocks from our home. Right on cue, Nancy arrived home, changed clothes, and left again, gear in hand. I tailed her to the trailhead at Rainbow Mountain. Her Volvo was parked beside a sleek black BMW. I knew those trails well and took a side path to get to the ridge above. There, through the trees, I spotted movement. I ducked low and pulled out my binoculars. Just below the overlook, Nancy and a man were laying out a blanket. I recognized him, Stephen Connor. He'd started working with Nancy 6 months ago. I had met him a couple of times at company mixers. Seemed like a good guy. Married. 2 kids in elementary school. I'd even told Nancy once that his family was the kind I hoped we'd have one day. Watching them from behind the brush, my stomach turned. Nancy stripped down without hesitation. They were loud and clumsy, laughing between what I could only describe as a careless, raw encounter. I snapped a few photos, though I didn't know why. Maybe part of me still couldn't believe what I was seeing. After they finished, she gave him a peck on the cheek and walked off like it was no big deal. I waited until she was gone before following at a distance. I didn't confront her. I wasn't ready. I reached the Hawk Mountain overlook just as Stephen was strolling down the trail. He didn't see me right away. I was looking through binoculars, pretending to birdwatch. "What are you looking at?" he asked from behind Dot. "Red-tailed hawk. Nesting up there," I said, pointing Dot. "Which tree?" he asked, leaning forward. "Dot. That big one with all the cones." "I can't see it," he replied, stepping closer to the cliff edge. I turned to him. "Stephen, I'm David, Nancy's husband." His eyes widened. "Oh, crap." Before he could finish, I shoved him. He went over fast. His scream echoed once, then nothing. I stood there, my heart pounding. Below, his body was twisted, motionless. Just then, my phone buzzed. "Hey, Laura," I answered, steadying my voice. "Dot. Just leaving the office. You still in the archives? I'll be back up in 10. Leave those letters on my desk. I'll take care of them." "No problem. See you tomorrow." I tossed my hiking boots in a dumpster on the way back and changed into my dress shoes. I arrived home early and acted like nothing had happened. Nancy was surprised to see me. The next day, Stephen's body was found. It was all over the news. Nancy seemed genuinely rattled. He didn't come home last night. His wife thought he was just working late, But then they found him on Rainbow Mountain. Was he into bird watching? I asked casually. I don't think so. You were up there yesterday, weren't you? She hesitated. No, I wasn't. I nodded. Guess I better find the black suit. She glared at me for my tone. That night, I heard her crying quietly in bed. I didn't say anything. 2 days later, I was at work when a man approached me. Mr. Richards? I'm Detective Mark Harris. Mind answering a few questions? Sure. What can I do for you? Did you know Stephen Connor? We worked for the same company, but I didn't know him well. Just saw him at some events. He pulled out a notebook. This is about the incident on Rainbow Mountain. The next couple days were a blur. Then a detective came around asking more questions. We're just trying to wrap things up, he told me. Your wife and Mr. Connor were friends, and we want to make sure there's nothing more to it. They worked together. That's all there is to it, I said firmly. Well, the detective replied, your wife told us this morning that she was up on Rainbow Mountain with Stephen, right before the accident. My stomach turned. That can't be. She told me she was home doing laundry. He glanced at his notes. Apparently, she and Stephen have been seeing each other for over 3 months. I cut him off. Hold on. You're saying a lot of things about my wife that I don't think are fair. I'm not accusing her of anything, he said. I'm just telling you what she admitted to us. You and your wife have some things to figure out. Was he trying to push my buttons? Because if so, it was working. He added, relax, Mr. Richards. We're not here to upset you. We also spoke with your secretary, Laura Bennett. She said you were in the basement archives Tuesday afternoon. Not the whole afternoon, just a couple hours, maybe less, I corrected him. I spent most of the day in my office. Left around 5:30 or 6 o'clock. The guard said you signed out around 4:46, he noted. That sounds about right. I wasn't watching the clock. Just wanted to get home. And your wife said you got there around 6 o'clock? Did she say I stayed the rest of the night? I asked. He raised his hands. Everything seems fine. Just checking timelines so nothing gets missed. Then he gave me a hard look. So, you really didn't know about your wife and Stephen? Nope, I said through clenched teeth. But it sounds like I'll hear all about it over dinner. He handed me his card and left without another word. The second the door closed, I exploded. I threw my stapler across the room. That was when Laura walked in. David, I hope I didn't mess up, she said carefully. I shook my head. You're fine. Thanks for being honest. No problem, boss. Let me know if you need anything else. I might take a few days off, I muttered. There was one thing I knew for certain. I was done trying to fix things with Nancy. I just wanted out. No kids, no shared mortgage. We had rented the house, so the split could be clean. Funny thing was, years ago, I'd begged her to have children. Now I was relieved she'd said no. It wasn't even 3 o'clock yet, but I packed up and headed out. On the way, I withdrew $63,000 from our house fund. There was over $770,000 in it, and rolled into a dealership. 2 hours later, I drove off in a bright yellow Hummer. Cost me $58,000, paid in cash. It was a gas guzzler, sure, but at that moment, I just wanted something loud and bold. The dream house? That was dead in the water. When I pulled into the driveway, Nancy came out the front door, livid. What the hell is that? She yelled. My new ride, I said casually. Thought I'd get something exciting. Are you insane? How are we supposed to afford this? Relax. I paid cash. With what? You took it from our account, didn't you? I figured we're not buying a house anymore, I said. I'm single now. The Hummer seemed like a better investment. People were starting to stare. She grabbed my arm and yanked me toward the house. What do you mean, single? She hissed. You know what I mean. You and Stephen? Why would I want to build a life with someone who's been sneaking around behind my back? You're being ridiculous, David, she said, trying to regain control. We can talk this out. Oh, we'll talk. Like how you told me you were home doing laundry when you were actually up on Rainbow Mountain with Stephen. He needed someone to talk to. He was upset. Then why not go to a coffee shop? Why the secluded trail? He didn't want to break down in public. I was just trying to help. I stared at her. I could feel the heat building behind my eyes. It's all garbage, Nancy. You two have been messing around for months. You betrayed me. You betrayed his wife. You do not know what you're talking about, she fired back. If you have proof, show it. I did have proof. Photos. But showing her would mean admitting I was there at the scene. That wasn't an option. I have pictures, I said through gritted teeth. On a motel bed. Would that be enough for you? You're lying, she shouted, but her eyes told a different story. You son of a witch, she hissed. You're not divorcing me. You can sleep in that gas-guzzling truck of yours, but you're not sleeping in this bed. Maybe never again. Fine by me. She stormed off. I didn't follow. The funeral was strange. Stephen's wife, Megan, decided to bury him locally instead of back home. I guess the whole thing had thrown her for a loop. Nancy's co-workers filled the pews. When it was time to pay respects, Nancy stepped forward to shake Megan's hand. Megan looked her dead in the eyes. "You've got some nerve showing up," she said. "You ruined my marriage. Tore apart my family. If I ever see you again, I swear I'll tear you to pieces." Nancy was stunned. She turned and walked away, humiliated. A few people nearby had heard it all. I stepped forward, awkward. "I'm sorry. If she did anything, eh?" Megan cut me off. "She cheated on you, and you're still defending her? What kind of man are you?" I nodded slightly and turned away. No point arguing. On the drive home, Nancy was silent. But once we stepped inside, she exploded. "Why would you drag me there? To humiliate me? That was cruel. Why'd she single you out?" I asked flatly. She cursed me out and stormed off. I spent that night in the guest room, not that I wanted anything to do with her anyway. The next day, I stopped by Megan's place. She was in the garage with her boys, sorting boxes. "Hey," I said, "I just wanted to apologize for yesterday. Didn't mean to make anything worse." She didn't say much at first. Then, "I've got enough going on. If you're here to complain, I'm not interested. I'm here to help, if you'll let me." She paused, then handed me some trash bags. "Start with Stephen's closet. Bag it all and take it to Goodwill." The boys joined us, Alex and Chris. They helped me load up the Hummer, then we dropped the bags downtown. When we got back, Megan looked tired but thankful. "You really don't need to help more, Mr. Richards. Just trying to make things right," I said. "Do you know exactly what happened?" "I've got a pretty good idea, but I'd rather talk about it another time." "I'll stop by tomorrow," I offered. "Help clean the garage if you want." "Sounds good," she said. Driving home, I felt a strange calm. I did not feel bad for what happened to Stephen. Honestly, it seemed like Megan didn't either. When I got home, the house smelled like chili. I figured I'd give peace one last shot. "Nancy," I said at the table, "given everything that's happened, don't you think we should talk about separating?" "No," she said without looking up. "I'm not leaving. If you want out, you go." "Come on, Nancy. You admitted you and Stephen wanted different things than we did. Wouldn't divorce make more sense?" "I'm not giving up my life over this," she snapped. "You can move out if you want, but I'm not going anywhere." I sat there in silence. The chili was too spicy, and I started feeling sick halfway through. After running to the bathroom half a dozen times, I finally started throwing up. I was drenched in sweat and weak as a dog. "Nancy, I'm really sick. Can you take me to the urgent care clinic?" I begged, slouched on the couch. "No way," she snapped, flipping through channels. "Desperate Housewives is about to start. If your stomach's upset, take a Tums. It's more serious than that. Please." She barely glanced at me. "Drive yourself. Stop acting like a baby." I grabbed my keys and stumbled toward the car. Luckily, my neighbor was taking the trash out. He asked if I was all right. I told him what was going on, and thank God he offered to drive me. Next thing I remember, I woke up in a hospital bed with sunlight pouring through the blinds. Detective Harris was sitting there flipping through a magazine. "Good afternoon, Mr. Richards. Thought you'd sleep the whole day," he said, like it was nothing. "What the hell happened? Why are you here? What time is it?" I mumbled. "Take it easy," he said calmly. "Let things come back to you. You were poisoned, David. That chili you ate last night had rat poison in it. Your neighbor got you here just in time." "That woman," I blurted out. "What did she say?" "She gave us the leftover chili. We tested it. Nothing wrong with it. She says she has no clue where the poison came from. She ate the same food and was fine. We searched your house and garage, turned up nothing." "So what now?" I asked, half expecting handcuffs or something. "Nothing, for now," he said just as the doctor and nurse walked in. They checked me out, took another blood sample, and handed me a bland food guide for recovery. Said I could go home when I was ready. I borrowed Harris's phone and called Megan to apologize for missing our meeting. When I handed it back, Harris leaned in. "Why would your wife want to kill you, David?" "I don't know." "Why'd she kill Stephen Connor? Got proof?" "No, but she was the last one to see him alive." "Come on, I'll give you a ride home," he offered. Nancy acted oddly sweet when I got back, apologetic, even. I didn't say a word. Went straight to the guest room and shut the door. There was no way I was eating anything she cooked again. Next morning, I called Laura to say I was taking a sick day and asked her to help me find an apartment. Somehow, she already knew what happened. Once Nancy left for work, I packed a few essentials, just in case I had to disappear fast. After breakfast at IHOP, I swung by Megan's. She was visibly more upset than Nancy had been. I told her I'd be back later, had a few personal things to sort out. Nancy didn't want a divorce, but it was crystal clear she wanted me out of the picture. That left me with two options: revenge or making sure she didn't walk away with a dime. I paid a visit to my insurance agent. Stupid or not, I had taken out a $1 million life policy after we got married. Nancy was still the beneficiary. The policy had built up over $166,000 in cash value. I cashed it in and canceled it. Then I dropped the collision and comprehensive coverage on her Volvo. I canceled her medical and dental coverage through my job. Health would stay for a bit, but dental would cut off by month's end. I switched the beneficiary on my work insurance to my mom. When I got to the bank, the manager told me Nancy had already cleaned out what was left in our house savings, about $112,000. I explained the situation, and he helped me prep to close everything. I opened a new account in my name and did the paperwork. Later, I went back to the house. Nancy was getting ready for one of her bird-watching sessions. She mentioned she was heading back to Rainbow Mountain to relax. It sounded like a trap. I waited till she left, hopped on my Rebel motorcycle, and followed her up to the mountain. Her car was parked in the upper lot beside a gray Ford Ranger. I rode around to the lower lot, where I spotted her mountain bike chained to a tree, hid my bike in the brush, and hoofed it up the trail. From behind a boulder, I watched her meet with some guy holding a weird-looking tool. She handed him a photo and an envelope. He looked it over, counted the cash, and they shook hands. Then she walked back down the path in my direction. I ducked behind a ledge and waited. She passed by without seeing me. The guy stayed put, hidden behind the rocks, clearly waiting for someone to show up. She thought I'd follow her from the upper lot. That man was waiting for me. I went downhill the faster way, grabbed her mountain bike, and rode it back to the upper lot. The Ford was still there. Unlocked. I snagged a jogging outfit from the front seat, grabbed the registration, and found a book of matches in the console. I soaked the pants in gas from my Rebel, twisted them up, shoved them into the Ford's gas tank, lit it, and got out of there. Halfway down the hill, I heard the blast echo through the trees. I made it back to the house fast, ditching back roads to avoid traffic. Parked the bike behind the garage and grabbed the fertilizer spreader. Rolled it back and forth on the lawn like nothing happened. It was empty, but Nancy didn't know that. She pulled up looking rattled. "Where's the Volvo?" I asked, trying to act casual. "You leave it on the mountain and ride back?" Her phone rang. She turned away to answer it, but I could tell the person on the other end was worked up. "David, I left the Volvo at the top and biked home for exercise. I know it sounds silly. Can you drive me back up there to get it?" "Sure. Hop in." She fidgeted the whole way up. When we got close, fire trucks were already racing past us. A cop stopped us halfway up the road. "Sorry, folks. A truck caught fire at the top. No one's allowed up for now. My wife's car is parked up there. Can we walk up to get it?" I asked. After a quick radio call, he nodded. "Yeah, you can hike it. An officer will help you bring it down." Nancy looked pale. "Thanks for the ride," she muttered and stepped out. I waited till she was out of sight, then followed at a distance. The chaos made it easy. When she reached the top, she met with the same man. He was angry, waving his arms, clearly panicked. They argued for a while, then spoke to the fire chief. Eventually, they left together in the Volvo. I hightailed it back to Megan's on the motorcycle. She looked relieved when I showed up. I gave her a watered-down version of the story, and we ordered pizza. Alex and Chris were thrilled to see me. We worked on clearing the basement for a garage sale. Later that night, Megan gave me a ride home, and I left the motorcycle at her place. Nancy came in late. I did not ask where she had been. Next morning, while she showered, I took her phone and removed the SIM card. Then, after she left, I closed our joint accounts, canceled her phone plan, paid the $200 cancellation fee myself, and cut the landline, DSL, and cable. I told our landlord I was moving out immediately and let him keep the deposit. Told him if Nancy wanted to stay, she'd need her own lease. The water and power were set to shut off by week's end. By midday, I had everything loaded into the Hummer and headed to my new apartment. Laura had left a note saying Detective Harris wanted me to call him. So I went to the station. "Well, look who's still standing." Harris grinned when I walked in. "What's that supposed to mean?" He chuckled. Do you know a guy named Adam Foster? Never heard of him, I said, handing him the registration from the truck on the mountain. He glanced at it. Interesting, he said, mimicking a bad Charlie Chan accent. We both chuckled. Your wife's been calling this guy. 6 calls from her to him. From him to her. And 3 days ago, she withdrew $12,000 in cash. Who is he? I asked. Adam Terrell. Convicted felon. Known for doing dirty work. We've been watching him. When he popped up connected to your wife, it raised flags. Any idea why she'd want me gone? Well, there was, until you canceled that life insurance policy. Does she know you did that? Nope. Adam's good at what he does, I'll give him that. But without his truck, and now that we've put heat on him, maybe he backs off. We warned him, if anything happens to you, he's our first suspect. I've moved out. Not sure what else I can do now. Mark leaned back, watching me carefully. Detective Harris looked at me like he knew I was holding something back. David, he said, I've got a hunch you're not telling me the whole story. Things ain't quite adding up. I didn't respond. Just gave him a look and left his office. I drove straight to Megan's place. She was up for lunch, and I was glad. She liked sushi, just like me. I tried to fill her in a little about what had been going on, but not too much. There was a lot I just couldn't say. She gave me a few puzzled glances, so I changed the subject. Lunch ran long, and before I knew it, she had talked me into coming back for dinner. I apologized for acting scattered, but she brushed it off with a laugh. Being around her just felt easy. The next morning, I actually felt ready to get back to real life. The night with Alex and Chris was a blast. I hadn't laughed like that in months. I didn't miss Nancy. If anything, I felt free. Climbing into the Hummer that morning, I had this strange sense of optimism, like maybe life was finally starting to shift in the right direction. But that feeling didn't last. I'd barely made it over the first hill when I felt something was wrong. The brakes weren't working. And not like soft or slow, completely gone. I used to think people in movies were dumb for not stopping a car, but now I got it. I tried to turn off the ignition, but with it in gear, the key wouldn't budge. The Hummer picked up speed. I threw it into low gear, which jolted me, but it just kept going faster. I was barreling toward traffic and a few intersections. Off to the left was a cemetery with a steep grassy slope. Figured it was my best shot. I cranked the wheel, yanked the handbrake, and the Hummer spun out, flipped over as it hit the slope. Next thing I knew, I woke up in a hospital bed. Second time in a month I'd been knocked out cold. My whole body ached. I could barely move. A nurse was hovering over me, checking everything, and I just wanted quiet. A doctor came in eventually, and at the foot of the bed, there was Megan. Seeing her calmed me down a bit. I passed out again soon after. When I woke up the next time, the room was quiet. Megan was asleep in a chair beside me. I whispered, "Hey, you awake?" She stirred, gave me a smile, and said she was dreaming. She thanked me for being there. I smiled back and dozed off again. The next morning, I felt a little more alert. Still hurt like hell, but I was clear-headed. Megan wasn't in the room, which threw me off a bit. The doctors peppered me with questions, mostly about pain and vision. I had questions too. Turns out I'd been out for 2 days. Nancy had signed the hospital paperwork, then vanished. Megan had been visiting me every day. Harris had stopped in too. My injuries weren't life-threatening. A concussion, broken collarbone, broken arm, and a few busted ribs. The doctors were most concerned about the time I was unconscious. When I finally got some soup, Harris showed up again. "You were supposed to be watching my back," I told him. "Yeah, we didn't expect this," he said, shaking his head. "Someone cut your brake lines. Airbags were tampered with too. You went through the windshield. Seatbelt's what broke your ribs. No fire." "Nope." "Lucky." He scratched his chin. "Seen Nancy?" "Nope. She signed my forms and disappeared. We checked your house. Found her purse, had about $8,000 in cash, driver's license, credit cards, all left behind. Doesn't look like she packed for a trip. So she's missing? Pretty much. What about that guy, Adam Foster? Believe it or not, he's laid up in a Philly hospital. 2 guys brought him in and made sure staff knew to keep him out of trouble." I blinked. "I don't know anyone in Philly." "Okay. Just thought I'd ask." He stood. "You want a guard on your door?" I laughed. "Might not be the worst idea." Megan walked in not long after. "Doctor says you can go home tomorrow if you've got somewhere to stay," she said. I told him you'd be coming with me. "Nurse stop by daily. Doc wants to see you next week." "Sounds good," I said. "So, are you giving me sponge baths, or is that the nurse's job?" She rolled her eyes. You're lucky you can still use your legs. We laughed. Recovery wasn't easy, but Megan and the boys made it bearable. First week, I barely left the house. Then I had Megan drive me by the old place. The landlord was there, wondering about renting it. We talked, made arrangements to clear the place out. Laura dropped by, too. She'd been checking in at the hospital and had gotten close with Megan. They got along well. Once I was healed enough to work, I decided to keep living with Megan and the boys. After a few months, we slowly shifted from friends to something more. I started staying in the master bedroom. Alex and Chris didn't blink. To them, it probably felt normal. We started going to school events, dinners, and even parent meetings. Only problem was, I was still legally married to Nancy. I kept in touch with Harris. He had no updates. Eventually, I filed to have Nancy declared legally deceased. It was the only way I could move forward. One night, I took Megan to a quiet Italian spot. We split a bottle of wine, enjoyed a great meal, and when dessert came, I took a breath and said, "Megan, I know it hasn't been long for either of us, but I'm certain I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Would you marry me?" She smiled. "Is that a real proposal, or just a warm-up?" "It's real. So, will you?" "Yes," she said. "But there's one catch." "What's that?" "You're going to have to meet my family. In Philadelphia."